Hello, welcome back to the Shack. It's been a long time for a variety of reasons, but I have a project that I think is pretty interesting, I'm really excited about, and I'd like to share with you. I build a lot of kits, I build a lot of projects. I don't record most of them, I don't make videos for most of them, but this is one that I'm particularly excited about, and I think other people will be too. One of the reasons I would like to talk about is because it's something that I would have liked to have seen more about before I made the decision to buy it, because it's a little bit expensive. And so I'm hoping that this will provide information for other people who may be interested. As you can see, this box came from Germany. And I pulled the labels off, but the reason it came from Germany is because this is an MNT Pocket Reform kit. I've purchased an MNT Pocket Reform kit. I'd like to get it taken out of the box here, get it laid out on the desk, and then see what it is to put it together. Now, I don't anticipate this is a zero soldering kit. This is not a kit like the keyboard or the PyDP 1170 that I've done in the past. This is more of just an assembly process. It's already, all the parts I believe have already been tested by MNT in Germany before they were shipped to me. We'll just be putting them together. Nonetheless, I hope it'll be an interesting process, for at least for people to see what this kit is made of and what the parts are and how it goes together if they're making the decision about whether they might be interested in one themselves. So after this, I'll probably speed up the video a bit. I'm going to go ahead and cut this open, and I'm going to pull some of the parts out of the box. Okay, double boxed is great. I love double boxed. This is clearly double boxed. What's not great is packing peanuts, but I understand they are cost effective and effective. So we'll brush those out of the way and start pulling the inner box out. I'm going to try to do this without destroying the camera stand here. Of course, it's right in the way, as such things always are. And without getting packing peanuts all over my basement. Feels like these are probably the biodegradable kind. They feel just a little bit sticky. There we go. And here's the inner box removed from its packaging. It's beautiful. Of course, this isn't necessarily about the packaging, but I do know people like to see that. Has this nice MNT logo sticker holding it closed, so I know that an MNT representative was the last person to have this box open. Okay, more packing peanuts. Not ideal, but there we go. The DIY kit instructions. It has a QR code there. We probably will open that in a little bit. It hopefully will give us some information about how things go together if it's not obvious. There goes the first packing peanut onto the floor. Remove these inner boxes. Second packing peanut onto the floor. And I think that's it. So inside the box, we had three sort of types of packages here and some paperwork. The types of packages are these cardboard boxes, which I assume have the electronics in them. Some bubble wraps. I think this is probably the case and the input. I mean, you can see that this is clearly the case. The case and the input devices. And then this flat pack, which I expect to be the front and back panel, maybe, or something like that. But we'll start pulling these things open. I may not video opening all these packages. I don't want this to be an unboxing video, but you know, it is nicely done. It's very professionally done, which is nice to see when you're, you know, laying out over $1,000 for a product like this. Here's what was in the box. I didn't take it apart into as many, or I didn't open it up as much as I could have, because if you see here, these bags are each numbered. And inside the bag, if you open up this polyester or whatever bag, there are some device, and then, for example, in this case, the screws that mount that device, also with the number on it. So I think I want to keep these bags together. until I'm ready to do something with those, because I'm not sure that I don't want to get the screws lost, mixed up, etc. I don't know how many different screws we're talking about here. I'll go consult the instructions before we go a whole lot farther. But the basic assemblies are the top and bottom assemblies for the computer itself, for the little laptop itself. Not sure which is which at this point, although I believe this is the input assembly for the trackball down here. I'm not sure yet. I haven't looked into that closely yet. Maybe this is. And then, as I said, those little flat paper packages had the front and back plates on them. This is the back plate. It's made out of FR4, out of PCB, and it's in reasonably good condition. It looks reasonably cool. And then the top plate for the keyboard, obviously. The keyboard module, this is one of my big questions about this device, is whether I'm going to be able to work with this keyboard. I love ortholinear keyboards. You've seen me put together an ortholinear keyboard in the past, but if you see, this is very, very small. These keys are very small. It's much smaller than not much, but several millimeter per key smaller than a standard keyboard, and we'll see if that is a problem for me. Of course, I won't know that by the end of this video, but over time, I'll learn. I sprung for the Rockchip the fast CPU module. So here's the CPU module and the motherboard, and then the display right here. So I'm going to go off and I'm going to read some instructions. I'll come back and we'll see what we can do to put this together. I'm not going to put you through the entire assembly process probably, because it's going to take a while, right? I mean, even in this bag number 3 alone, we have probably 10 screws, 8 screws, something like that in this little bag. So it's going to take a little while to put all this together, and that's not necessarily interesting viewing. But I will sort of maybe do partial modules and figure out what the interesting things are, bring you in for a little bit of that, and then we'll take a look at the device when it's put together in the end. Okay, so I really haven't gotten very far yet, but I already have something that I want to stop and talk about, something I'm pretty happy about, which is that I'm on step 1 of the instructions. You see that this bag says number 1 on it. Inside it, there was a bag that says number 1 that has some screws in it, and then the headphone board and some other devices. And if you look in the instructions here, we're on step 1, assembly step 1, and it has that same board and the cables that go with it. So the bags are numbered with the steps of the instructions, which is really nice. At any rate, I'm going to go ahead and get this installed, but props to MNT Research for the way they've done their instructions here. I think this is very well done. Okay, so here we are, partway through assembly. I'm on step, 7 or so of the instructions. I'm not sure without looking. But I'm to the point where I'm about to join the top and the bottom halves together here. So I wanted to stop for a minute and talk about what I've done so far. The bottom half went together fairly easily. There's a couple things that I'm not sure how much I love in the assembly so far. And we'll see how those turn out to be over time. So far, I'm very happy. Everything is very nice, very nicely done, high quality, fits tight, fits cleanly and nicely. But just as far as engineering considerations, some questions that I would have. One thing I'll say is the keyboard feels in here really, really nice. It's tight, it's stiff against this. It's against the aluminum center line of this machined case here. It fits very nicely and tightly. This little OLED display board is attached to it with a flat flex cable. And I don't really love either the instructions for that or how it was put together for 2 reasons. One, the flat flex cable has, you can see probably just a little bit on the video, a little blue end there. And often in complete assemblies, commercial assemblies, there will be a line struck across that so that you can see exactly how far to insert it into the connector when it's fully seated and latched down. And I have seen some things on the MNT forums where people say, well, I reseated my cables and it got better. And I think that might be something they should consider, is having that line struck across, however many millimeter from the end it needs to be for full insertion. That should be in the data sheet for the connectors. Another is that this cable is looped like this, so that the conductor side is down towards the board, as these connectors are designed to be on both sides, which is fine. But if you can see, and maybe you can't, it's offset. The connector on the bottom is here, and the connector on the top, rather than being here, is offset just a little bit in this direction, which means that there's a little short cable here. It's only about this long, folded, that has that offset in it, which means that there's going to be some lateral tension on those connectors. I'm not sure that's a problem, but I don't, as I said, I don't really love it. It's something that would have concerned me a little. Another thing, probably the biggest thing so far that I have a question about, is this is the charging board. And I don't know what charging board I have. I haven't done all of the due diligence of looking at all my part numbers yet. I know that some of the part numbers, or some of the charging boards have issues. They've, I think, removed a diode from some of them and things like that to cause it, to make them more reliable. And my complaint is not related to that. It's that this charging board is mounted only with 2 screws at this end, at the far end of the board. This end is sort of flapping in the breeze. Of course, it's tight down against the case. But behind it, there is an aluminum bar, anodized aluminum bar that's running, and it ends right here, that runs in this direction to give support both behind this board and for these narrow bars here. And on the back side of this board, there are some traces, and I believe they would contact some of these aluminum bars, and the only thing that's protecting them is solder mask. So you have a board that's only connected with 2 screws on one end, and has the only thing between it and the aluminum case is the anodizing, which probably does not conduct very well. It normally doesn't. And the solder mask on this board, and there could conceivably be a large amount of current in this board. Now, this board, of course, it'll have overcurrent protection and things like that. It's a battery charging board. But I think that's a little unfortunate, and there should be maybe a little bit of acetate between there, or conformal coating on the back of the board, or something to sort of protect that board from the aluminum underneath, in my opinion. But other than that, things have gone together very easily, very clearly. The instructions are clear. They tell how to route the cables from one half to the other through here. Putting each of the modules in has been relatively easy. This is the first bag that I opened. This is bag number 4. I said before that I thought the bags would be numbered with the steps of the instructions. They're not, but they are numbered in the order that you open them. So the first bag takes you through step 1, 2, maybe step 3, and then the second bag is a couple of steps or whatever. This is the first bag that I've opened that has multiple different screw sizes in it, but they are all either M2 by 5 millimeter, or I don't know what this is, maybe 2 or 2.5 millimeter, or this larger, probably I'm guessing M4 screw here. And it's pretty obvious, right, that the large screws go in here and the small screws go in the small holes. So this isn't a problem. This is the first bag that I've opened that had screws of more than one type. And the other bags, every screw in the entire bag was exactly the same, and every screw on that step of the instructions used the same, or every screw hole in that step of the instructions had the same screw going down into it. So like all the screws for the keyboard and the 2 screws for the OLED display were in the same step, and they're all exactly the same. So these are the first ones that are different, but they're fairly obviously different so far. I assume these little tiny ones will be for something like the side plates, right, or something like that. I haven't gotten there yet. But so far so good. I continue to be happy with what I'm seeing. A couple little quibbles, but it appears to be very well designed, and it fits tight. It feels good. It feels really nice. And so I'm excited to see what happens from here. So I'll be back with you in a few more steps. We still have to put the display in. We have to mount the top. That's the very next step. The top and the bottom halves together. We have to put the I/O ports on the other side of this, and a few other things before we get it into a condition where we could start thinking about powering it up, seeing what's happening. So I'll see you in a few minutes. I'm nearing the point where I'm going to be buttoning things up, so I want to start talking a little bit about my overall feel about the build and the way things go together. So this is the unit sort of clamshelled and put together as it will be before it's closed. The only thing I haven't done basically is the heatsink stickers and putting the top and bottom cases on it. So one thing that I want to mention before I talk about the rest of this is that the really fantastic thing about this device, the reason I have this device, the reason that I think it's deeply interesting, is that it's almost fully open source. The Rockchip module has some binary blobs in it MNT Research is not prepared to build their own processors. They're even the Pi Foundation, Raspberry Pi, who has a huge amount of influence at Broadcom and a lot of resources. They don't make their own processors, right? They're using Broadcom processors, and there's bits of them that have binary blobs in them as well. That's just something that in this industry, in the hobby industry, in the small electronics industry, we're not yet prepared to escape from. So there are some binary blobs for this Rockchip system on a chip and system on board, or system on module here, but everything else here is open source. The CAD files for the case, the CAD files, the schematics, everything for the motherboard, the specifications for all the devices that are on here, right? It's all open source. It's all very open. And I cannot stress enough how amazing that is. Next to that, it's very modular, as you can see. So we have a motherboard here. We have the module that's sort of in a socket here that has the Rockchip module on it. We have the cable going to the display module, cables going to the ports on this side, cables going down to the keyboard and the system controller and the speaker, and everything is very modular. It comes apart, it goes back together. It's designed for hacking, for repair, for actually doing work on it and with it. And that's something that you basically can't buy, right? So I'm going to gripe just a little bit about the cable layout here, but I also want to recognize that the reason, that's just they're loose, right? There's a lot of extra cable here. There's a lot of slop, and I don't love that. But the reason it's there is that this may not be the last revision of the motherboard for this Pocket, right? This may not be exactly the last revision of the case. This may not be exactly, etc., etc. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of slop in these cables, but if they were tighter, it would really constrain your options for what charging board you put in it, for what motherboard, you put in it, how the motherboard is laid out, and things like that. And so I understand why there's a little bit of slop in things. They're working, I think, on a second revision. I don't actually know if I have it or not. First or second revision display module in this. There are multiple Wi-Fi modules that you can get. There are multiple CPU and system on a chip modules that you can get to plug into this motherboard. That's really amazing, right? It's wild. It's unheard of in the hardware industry. The only other hardware device manufacturer that I'm aware of that is designing for modularity, for replacement, for upgrade, for sustainability in anything like the way that MNT Research is Framework. And their goals are different. Their sustainability model is different. How sustainable they want their things to be, where they're manufactured. All these things are different. They have somewhat different goals. But they are you can buy a faster motherboard, right? You can buy a better display. You can get a different keyboard for your Framework laptop, same as you can for the MNT Research devices. Of course, MNT Research has the Reform, which is a full laptop size laptop. They have this. There are, I think, 2 versions of the Reform. They have this, and then the Reform Next has been through crowdfunding and will be released as a usable device here soon. So they're really, I think, breaking ground, doing really amazing things. So these cables are a little sloppy. I don't love it, but again, I understand why they are the way they are. Now, the only thing I've run into so far that has been a little bit of trouble for me is this is the top plate, right, that goes on the back of the display. Note that it has the beautiful MNT. I really love this logo, right, this MNT logo on it. It also has the heat sink for the system on a chip right here. Now, I have chosen to stick my antenna, my Wi-Fi antenna, to this board in this place on this side over the motherboard. And I don't actually think that that's ideal. I don't think I would like to have it there. I think I would like to have it over here, which is where it's designed to be. Unfortunately, the coaxial cable that's soldered to this patch antenna is not long enough to go from here to the antenna connector on this board. So I'm going to put it on this side, which I think is probably going to lose me some efficacy because it's over this motherboard right here. And I don't know what options I have. I don't want to get it too close to this display cable. Interfering with this display cable is known to have caused some problems for some people in the past. So I think I'm going to keep it over here. We'll see what happens. If I have really bad reception, I mean, this antenna is an off-the-shelf part. I can just get an antenna that has a longer cable. I can potentially put a longer piece of coax on it, on this antenna. It's just a stick-on patch antenna. So we'll see. That's the only thing I've run into so far that's been any trouble. Other than that, the instructions are clear. They're easy to follow. Everything has gone really fantastic. Now, this revision of the motherboard has a place for an M.2 Wi-Fi module, or I don't know if it's M.2, but it's a related standard Wi-Fi module that goes right here. Of course, here's the Wi-Fi module in mine. It also has a place for an NVMe module to be installed here for storage. Now, I am not yet going to put an NVMe on it. It also has an SD card slot and an eMMC on the system on module. One of these boards has an eMMC on it. And I'm going to install the eMMC for now, or maybe to the SD card. I'm not sure which. But ultimately, I would like to put an NVMe in it for performance. So here is the clamshell. I'm not going to open it up right now. I'll wait till I have it completely together. But of course, we have the places for the batteries. We have the battery controller. This is the trackpad, or I'm sorry, the trackball module right here. These cables right here coming out in the bottom go around to the top side, and they are the charging, or the battery controller cables to the motherboard. Of course, this is the back side of the keyboard. And then we went through what was on this side. You can see that the keyboard has two cables that come in from the other side onto the motherboard. Here's the speaker. There's the speaker module right there. The speaker goes onto the motherboard right here. Those charging cables come through to right here. And then, of course, the display is behind. There's a little I/O board here. And then the motherboard ties it all together. So I'm going to do some cable routing. I'm going to put the thing together, and we'll look. I think there's a couple more screws on the system module here and such that I'm going to put in. And then we will look and see what this looks like all put together when I come back. And here it is assembled. Everything's together. The clamshell is complete, and both of the front and the back case are on. It has a etched part number information panel on this side, and of course it has the sweet MNT logo on this side. There's a little groove here to grab to open it up. Has a small, I believe it's a 7-inch, they call it 7-inch display on the inside, the keyboard, the trackball, and then of course the mouse buttons. I'm not going to do a power up in this video. This video is already going to be long enough. I don't know if I'll do that video or not. That feels like the sort of thing that the software in some sense for me is not as interesting. It's going to run Linux, right? If anything interesting does come up, maybe I'll make a video and I'll talk about that. But the hardware is very interesting to me. I think this is a cool device. So far, I'm very happy with it. It feels, it's hard to tell through the video, obviously, but it feels very, very nice. It feels solid. It has heft. It stays closed, but it's not crazy heavy. Of course, it's quite small, so even though it's much heavier per sort of volume maybe, or per footprint than a device from somebody like Lenovo, or maybe not Lenovo, but Dell, you know, or HP or Apple would be, or whatever. It's heftier. It still is so small that it's really not that heavy, but it feels good. It feels solid. The hinges feel solid. They move nicely. They stay put when you open them. With one hand here behind the camera, it's hard to show, but it's easy to open. It snaps shut nicely. I'm very happy with what I see so far. I have a couple of questions about actually using it. One of them, as I mentioned before, obviously is this keyboard. Is this keyboard going to be large enough for me to use daily? Am I going to miss? I have large hands, right? Am I going to have trouble typing on this keyboard? We'll see. Another one is the display port, or I'm sorry, the I/O ports here are on the side of the display half of it, not the keyboard half of it. I have some questions about that as far as practicality. I would like to use it for lecture, to be able to hook it to a projector and use it for lecture, but we'll see. That's gonna, there's gonna be quite a cable. If I have HDMI, coming out the side of this, quite a cable coming out of it. But all in all, I'm very happy. The only considerations I had, right, there are a couple places where there's traces against the aluminum. Not sure if I love that. There's some wild cabling in there, but, you know, that's because of the modular nature. I did have the trouble with the Wi-Fi antenna. It's right underneath, I believe, right here, although I may have it I may have it the other way. No, I believe it's right here. We'll see how that works being over top of the motherboard. Again, all that's all of those things are because of the kind of device it is. And I'm happy with what I see so far. Super cool build quality. I'm very proud of MNT Research. I'm happy to use it for a while and hopefully report back and see what I think about actually using it. But very easy to put together. It took me a little while, you know, behind the camera, you know, moving in and out, changing things around, trying to keep my workspaces. It's terrible, but as uncluttered as I could while I'm working on it. I don't know, a couple of hours to put it together. I think if you just sat down and did it straight through, it would be maybe an hour, something like that. There are a lot of small screws to put in. There's a number of cables. There's a number of small pieces. But it's not difficult. You follow the instructions. The instructions are really excellent. There's a couple things I might clarify in the instructions. I may or may not. If I decide they're important enough, I may file some change reports with that for MNT Research. Obviously, the documentation is also open source, right? Everything here is open source. But all in all, a very cool device. Not a big deal to put together. Happy with what I see so far. I'll use it a little bit, and I'll report back either with another video or maybe a post on my website or something about what I think about actually using it and whether it's practical for the tasks that I do day to day and which of those tasks it's practical for. So thanks for watching. If you stuck through to the end here with me, you are quite the trooper, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.